Someone is wrong on the internet. This is not a new thing. Many years ago, there was this excellent cartoon by this xkcd.com chap. Are you coming to bed? I can't. This is important. What? Someone is wrong on the internet. That was me. I was that person being like, oh God, why are they arguing about this with me? They don't know what they're talking about. And sometimes I'd probably be confused, maybe I'd be the wrong person on the internet, but nowadays, when it comes to this world of sound and acoustics and audio and bass and guitar, I think I can claim to be an expert on this. I do have a mechanical engineering degree and I've been running barefaced for 15 years now. Yeah, coming around to 15 years since the first barefaced cab went out. I also need a haircut, which is happening on Friday, so apologies for that, but you're not here to look at my hair. At least I've still got it. That's going quite well. It sort of seems heading up that way. Anyway, someone is wrong on the internet, and the person who is wrong on the internet, well actually, it's YouTube. Because rather than arguing on forums using desktop computers, as we used to do, we can now suffer people talking on YouTube about stuff they don't know about. And many of them are very enthusiastic and have good ideas and talk about stuff. And sometimes they just delve into a realm they don't know enough about to actually make a video that is informative. So I like the fact these people are excited enough to make a video, or well, maybe they're doing it for, I don't know, I'm not quite sure how YouTube works financially. All I know is that I go on it and talk about stuff because I want to educate people, and we run barefaced. And frankly, if you've got some money to spend on audio gear, we will probably make better stuff than anyone else I can think of. So if you've got the money, you know, I'd rather you buy our stuff, partly because it keeps me employed and my staff and the business running, but partly because, well, it's always been about making the world sound better, making people make better music because they can hear themselves better and better tone and so on and so forth. But the gentleman in question goes by the name of KDH, and he did a video about a week ago, well, a week from the point I'm recording this, I don't know when I'll stick it up on the interweb, about using a ported guitar cab. So this is, he was calling it a, well, he was pronouncing it differently, but it's a Thiel. Neville Thiel was the Australian involved, and Richard Small. Thiel and Small in the 70s came up with a mathematical way of describing low frequency behaviour of loudspeakers using, I think both of them were working around this electrical circuit analogy. But we won't delve into that too deeply. The point is, this is a ported guitar cabinet we were talking about. So this video, well, don't go and watch that video now. Watch me well, you could watch it and be like, oh, but don't believe what he's saying, technically, because he's getting it really quite wrong in most places. You can watch this and then go and watch it. But anyway, KDH is the man. Hopefully he might see this and learn something. Because, yes, he is this man who is wrong on the internet. So what's happened in this situation? I thought explaining why people are misunderstanding stuff, there's a good reason for that, in that one, there's lots of stuff I could talk about when it comes to sound and audio and things like that, but it's hard to decide where to start. And secondly, if someone's making a video about it, someone must be interested in it and other people are interested in it, so it's something to focus on. It sort of gives me a direction. And I don't like there being misinformation out there. I think it's one of my great disappointments about the internet, in that we now have what was billed as would be the Information Superhighway when I was a child, and when it finally happened, there were some early years of the internet being full of people who, on the whole, knew what they were talking about, and then gradually the rest of the world got on there and misinformation became rife, and algorithms do not help with that, and social media does not help with that. So there is a lot of misinformation. I'm not going to get into generic misinformation, but I will focus on misinformation in what is my professional field, which is audio engineering. So this is the cabinet in question in this video. It's a Harley Benton ported guitar cabinet. So guitar, not bass. That's the, well, there isn't a great significance, except that guitar is rarely imported cabs and bass usually is, because you need it for bass to move enough air. I will explain that in another video if you don't know why. But in this example, we have a close mic, I think it was 57 in the video, or something very similar to that, a very small distance from the cone, actually far enough in that it is closer to it's beyond the baffle, it's kind of inward, right into that space where it's within the airspace the cone takes up. And then your port's over here. So in the video you can listen to the guitar sound from this cab. Problem is, you're hearing what the mic is hearing. You are not hearing what this individual listening to it is hearing and giving his opinion on. And when it comes to sound, the distance you are from a sound source matters enormously in how loud it is. So if you are X meters away, say, let's call that 1 meter away from a sound source, if you double that distance, so 2x, 2 meters away, the sound from that source will now be 6 decibels quieter. That's the inverse square law. If you double that distance again, you'll then be 12 decibels quieter. Now, 10 decibels quieter is 1/10 the sound power and will sound about half as loud. Now, in this case, we've got a mic here, we've got a sound source here for the speaker, your other sound source, the port, is here. And that distance, if that distance from mic to speaker is D, the distance from port to mic, I'd say, is about 8-fold, about 8D. So we're looking at an 18 dB reduction in output from the port to the mic as it's being heard. So it's hearing the speaker and it's not really hearing the port. Whilst in the room, the distance between the speaker and distance from speaker to person's ears, and port to person's ears, those distances being X and Y, are very close. They're within, well, they're certainly, as long as they're within, you know, a ratio of, say, 0.6 to, or 0.7 to 1 and 1 to 1.5, you know, you're in a vague ballpark. So, you know, 1 or 2, maybe 3 dB if it's a doubling of distance, well, no, 2 dB, 3 dB if it's, say, 40% more distance, but it's close enough that the output of port and speaker have had a chance to combine in the air and reach your ear in synchrony. So what's actually happening with this microphone is it's hearing, this red line here is the output from the speaker, this orange line here is the output from the port. So we're going to zoom in so you can see things more clearly. There we go. Right, so we have speaker cabinet and red line followed by this green dashed line. This green dashed line is the total sound coming from the speaker and port system. But they are generated by the speaker in red and the port in orange, and there's a region here where the speaker and the port are predominantly in phase, so those sounds add together to give us this total sound in green. Up here, the output of the port is insignificant, and down here, the output of the port and the speaker are mostly out of phase, so the sound actually cancels. So that's why you get less output down here. That's why the green dash line has dropped below. So it's below, and then it comes above, you get your port gain, and on it goes from there. So then what happens next in this video? I've had a listen, and he's talked about it sounding different, and then he's put up a plot of what's going on with the response, which I will bring you down to here. This is my approximation of it. So what it's showing with this response is it's showing this green line is what's happening when the ports are not in action, so they're blocked off with a piece of wood that he's put over it. So this is the rough output from the guitar sound that he's looped from the speaker, and then it drops away, and there's very little down here, For good reason, in that a typical guitar is tuned with its low E at 82 Hz, so you don't really get anything below 82 Hz. You get a bit of sub-harmonic content, essentially from string wobbling, but it is not harmonic content. It is not part of the kind of musical spectrum. It's percussive content, so it's not really part of a guitar sound. Then, when the main port cover is taken off, so you've got 2 segments of the 3-segment port open, there's been a slight dip here, as far as I could tell, and a very slight increase here. And then when all 3 are open, there's a bigger dip here and more of a lump there. All he's noticed in this video is that this has lifted at 45 Hz. Well, that's a bit weird because there's no musical guitar output down at 45 Hz. That is almost the lowest string on a bass guitar. 41 Hz is your open E, so I guess 45 Hz, well 55 Hz is open A on a bass guitar, so 45 Hz must be about F sharp, a slightly, yes, it's about F sharp, a flat F sharp I think. It's way down there. What's actually happening is that the speaker is acting in an unloaded way. So in a ported cabinet, the air behind the speaker, or any cabinet that is closed, the air behind the speaker acts as a spring, and in a ported cabinet, that port resonates at a certain frequency and generates extra output. Below the port's tuning frequency, once you get a certain distance below it, the port doesn't act as anything, it just acts like a hole, and when the speaker goes in and out, it just pushes air in and out of the port, out of phase with the speaker, which cancels the sound out in the room. But close up to the speaker, what's actually happening is it's letting the speaker move more freely. So if you drive a speaker below the port resonance, the speaker moves as if it's in an open box, in an open cab. So therefore your speaker moves more easily, so you actually get more speaker movement way low down, which is what you see here when the speaker movement lifts there, or here. So this is cone excursion graph. Let's zoom in on that. Here we go. So this is cone excursion on the y-axis here. This is frequency, low down here, high there. Ignore the orange line. This is the peril of doing it on paper rather than a whiteboard. You can't correct yourself without starting again, and I'm not great at drawing at the best of times. It all makes sense in my head. Just trying to get it onto paper is challenging. In a closed box, the excursion increases basically proportionally with the power that's, well, it goes, let's ignore power, so this is constant power. Power's going in, but as we go lower in frequency, the excursion has to increase to transfer as much power, simply because the wavelengths are getting longer and the period of the wave is longer, so the speaker moves further before it changes direction. Then what happens here, you see this green line flattening out here, that is when the air spring of the box becomes stiffer and stiffer at low frequencies, and we're working below the resonance of the speaker, and essentially it self-limits itself with excursion. Now, in an open cab, we don't have that air spring, so in your Fender type combo amp, something like that, the excursion just keeps going up and up and up as we go lower in frequency. Now, in a ported cab, what happens is the port starts to help out, so the speaker, instead of moving air on its own and essentially moving air at atmospheric pressure, it starts to act upon this pressurized air that's coming back at it from the port, so it's driving this resonance system. So you actually get a much more efficient transfer of energy, and at the port's tuning frequency, the speaker is hardly moving but is managing to transfer this pressurized air to drive the port, and then the port air moves in much greater quantities and you get all this output, which is what we see here. There we are, from this orange line. That's your port output. So port output goes up, speaker output drops, and speaker excursion is also dropping. Then the peril we get is that below the port tuning frequency, the excursion shoots up as the speaker becomes unloaded. However, the speaker excursion, yes, it's shooting up, but it's no worse than in an open cab. And that's an important thing to hang on to, that if you put a guitar speaker in a ported cab at these low frequencies below the tuning frequency, it is no worse than putting a guitar speaker in an open cab. So, number one, guitar speaker in ported cab, it's fine, it's fine. Celestion say it's not. There is an increased pressure load on the speaker at this point, so you could, that's your risk, is cone creasing rather than cone excursion. I've never seen it. I'd be interested to see it. It's absolutely possible you may get distortion at these lower frequencies, but again, it is not something I've seen. And the AVD cabs we make at Barefaced, and there's quite a lot of them out there now. Yeah, quite a lot. We've been making them for coming around to 5 years, 4 or 5 years. These patented, groundbreaking guitar cabs that everyone who's used one is loving. We've had some nice response actually. Some of our guys did a gig recently, and the sound engineer was like, "Are you endorsed by Barefaced? You know, they're amazing. They're just..." And it's really nice to hear sound engineers being positive about our gear, because if anyone is going to be cantankerous and fussy and irritable about gear, it is sound engineers. And if sound engineers are liking it because it makes their lives easier, especially in the smaller venues that people like me are playing, that says a lot about them achieving what we aim for acoustically. So yeah, I've yet to see a significant problem with guitar speakers in ported cabs. I will say that in a conventional ported cab, in most guitar contexts, I can't really see the point of a ported cab, because where the ports are tuned is getting into the realm where the bass guitar and even the kick drum are trying to claim their space. Makes a bit of sense in chuggy styles where you want to go with a smaller cab. But you'll still usually need the mid-range, and that's where the AVD is good, because you're getting the mid-range output as well. Hopefully I've addressed all these kind of issues in that video, and that, yeah, it was this thing where KDH, who's clearly, you know, popular YouTuber, very keen on stuff, knows how to play guitar and all that, and he's saying, yeah, you can hear this difference. And the thing is, he's hearing a difference in the room, and what he's hearing is that the port is giving him more output. When you've got the more output in the low frequencies, when you've got, in that example, the 2 ports open of the 3, that's about half the port area. That's giving him a lower tuning frequency, so that's making less difference. When all 3 segments are open, that'll be a higher tuning frequency, getting more up into that up mid bass, low mid range area of the guitar, and giving this sort of fatter, weightier, slightly maybe thicker, but certainly boomier potentially sound. But that's going to be up around a tuning frequency, I would have guessed, closer to 100 Hertz. So in a realm where guitar's actually doing stuff, where's 100 Hertz? 100 Hertz is like G or something on your E string, so it's 3rd fret G on a guitar, not on a bass. But down at 45 Hertz, where he plays a sample of what 45 Hertz sounds like, which if you're listening on good headphones or good speakers, you might hear that. The probability is you may think you're hearing it through other things, but you're actually hearing the distortion overtones of 45 Hertz, which will be 90 Hertz and 135 Hertz and so on, because it's harmonic distortion that will dominate. So you may hear that and think, oh yeah, the 45 Hertz is low, and it's actually, no, 45 Hertz is really low in terms of a sound context. In actual music, it is really low. But 90 Hertz sounds low. There's a lot of kick drum energy at 90 Hertz, there's a lot of bass guitar energy at 90 Hertz, there's a lot of fatness at 90 Hertz. So he's heard this difference, he's attributed it to a change, and it's what he's actually seeing on this graph down here that I've sort of redrawn. This is an octave out. He's hearing a change here because he's hearing that change here. So it's this mismatch between what is happening, which he's hearing this green line gaining there. What we're hearing, because he's mic'd the speaker, not the port, is we're hearing the red line, and the mic is seeing the red line, and this is what he's, and therefore that's what the frequency response plot is showing. It's the red line, not the green line. So yeah, it's a whole muddle of confusion of someone on the internet who's trying to share information, make an interesting video, basically getting, well, 2 + 2 = 5. Classic problems of people who know just enough. As Tower of Power sang, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. and it's not such an issue in the past, but now you can make a video on the YouTube about your little knowledge being a thing, and it is dangerous for everyone out there who listens to you. So hopefully that's been useful. I'm thinking about this. I'm not a big watcher of YouTube, but I keep seeing bits and bobs, and I get sent links to things by people, and yeah, I'll continue this because it's quite interesting to go, guys, I like that you're interested in this, but actually you don't know enough about this to educate people about this because you're in a muddle. So let me demuddle you, and so I don't shout into the ether. I can shout at this camera. Well, I've got the auto volume thing on, so you'll be fine with me talking like this, I hope. So I've been Alex from Barefaced. We have more videos to make in here, and I will talk about that next time. I shall be here with a guitar wielder or a fellow bass wielder. I'm also slightly a guitar wielder now, but bass is normally my thing. Anyway, I'll be back. Tell me what you want to see or hear more of. Yes, thank you. Rock on, people.